Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Welcome back to iSelf Academy YouTube channel, and today we are going to see the second function called index and match. In our previous video, we saw how to work with the logic called XLOOKUP, and I just created an XLOOKUP by the last sales done by a specific sales representative, and then I'm about to use the same logic again when we are working on an index functionality, and this is the index function will work for you. And then I'm improvising our data set. I'm not going to use a match function here because again, in our XLOOKUP function, I told you certain basic logics, and then the default search option will be on a VLOOKUP will be an approximate match, and XLOOKUP will be an exact match. The same component sticks to the match and XMatch function also. So when I go for match, I need to choose whether it is an exact match or a greater than value or less than value. But if I use an XMatch function, I don't want to really worry about it. I can just do that because it's going to give you the exact match by default functionality here. So let's see, the data are a little jumbled here because in our previous video set, I kept the date, the sales rep, and the sales here. I just jumbled the data a little bit here. I kept the sales rep on the last line, and then I just started working on the sales here. When I go for index and match, like our XLOOKUP, I can choose the column that I want to play around with. So let me add our unique function again. And this time, the unique function, I'm going to use it a little differently. So I'm going to pick up the total data set of unique function here. I'm going to give a comma. And then it'll ask you, how do you want to work with the data set? So you want to return the unique column or a row and so on. I'm not going to use that. When I give a comma again, it will give you one more dimension called return item that appears exactly once or it appears differently. So I'm not going to use any of these dimensions. I'm going to just close the bracket and give an enter. That's going to give you the name. And I don't want the data type to come by the sales rep list. Instead, I want them in a particular order, either A to Z or Z to A. So how do I make this as an A to Z or Z to A? I'm just going to add either a sort or a sort by functionality. If I'm using Office 365, all these dimensions can work perfectly. So when I normally use a sort function, close the bracket and give an enter, that's going to automatically change the data dimension into an alphabetical order. If I'm a little skeptic about the order in which the data set should come into play, then I give a comma here. I'm going to leave this out in text, and I'm going to bring the data set into a descending order to make the data set to come other way around. So now I'm going to create my XLOOKUP function. Again, I'm using everything in Office 365 here so that the spell effects, and I don't do the cell references here, or I don't lock any of those dimensions. I'm going to just come down here. I'll say index function. The result that I'm looking forward right now is the sales revenue. Again, when I do use this data set, I will always use the first option, array, row number, and column number. Please, I don't use the second option at all here because I'm not going to deal with the area numbers in any of my formulas here. So when I come back to the index number, I'm going to select the whole list here. Then I'm going to pull the data back to the formula by giving control backspace. Then I'm giving a comma, and then the row number that I want to bring with a match function here. Instead of a match function, I'm going to use an XMatch function because XMatch function, you can see that by default an exact match is required here. And when I go back to the match function here, then I have to specify the order here. I'm preferably using the latest functionality XMatch here. I'm looking at this data set completely from top to bottom, so that way it selects on a spelled way. Then I give a comma, and then I'm going to select the whole list here and give a backspace. I don't want to say whether it is a match mode is this or search mode is this in this list. I'm going to just double close the bracket and give an enter. That's going to populate the data set here. If I want to make the data set perfectly with the right numbers here, then I can use a round function, and then I give a comma, and without a decimal portion, I want to see all the sales here. Now you can literally see what is the first sales done by Mr. Suresh, and first sales done by Hasini, and then first sales done by AV, and the first sales done by Arjun here. All our sales valuations are available here. Probably I should have done the headers, or I should have copied the headers much earlier than before. But this is how we can use our index function. Again, I improvised the data set here a little bit, and I showed the data set in a much more detailed pattern possible. This is how we'll use the index and match function. Again, we can use the data set in a much more different way possible if you want to. Instead of using the index and match function, I can only use an index function for a random data sets also. For example, I'm using this. This is an old school methodology of data set. So I'm going to go back to this data set. I have a set of employee numbers here. I just want to randomly pick somebody to this month, and then, or else I have 10 different performers. All of them have performed really well. I cannot, because most of them have done a very good job in their own respective field. So I have to randomly pick somebody to give a prize for me, or to give a employee of the month and other dimensions here. So to do this, I can again use the index function. When I use index function, I'm going to select the whole list here. Then I give a comma, and I'm going to go for the old school function called rand between. I have 10 different employees here, so I'm going to give 1, 10 and double close the bracket and give an enter. That's going to give you the name, and you can randomly pick up this by using a sheet refresh here, or the sheet refreshes keyboard shortcut is F9. So my sheet refresh is working here. At the moment it's not working because I'm using Cometia Studio, so I am manually doing it. If you can press F9 here, it allows you to do that and picks up any one of the name from the list here. You can use index and match function or index function for a random draw of a name of a person, or a random draw numbers can all be done with easier. This is how we work with index and match function, and this is one of our formula here. This is Vinod signing off from myself Academy on Financial Management or Financial Modeling Series 1.0. Pardon me. RVO number 11 is going on. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Happy updating.